Hello! So today we're taking a look at the F-14 Tomcat in Microsoft Flight Simulator. This is the Heatblur or India Fox Techo version of the Tomcat. We're going to be taking a look at navigation and autopilot use. Okay, so let's go and jump inside the aeroplane, and before we get started we're going to need to look at several things. So we've got the head-up display here, we've got the vertical display indicator, and we've got the high-speed display showing down here. And the major modes of these displays are reflected in these switches on the right hand side of the cockpit. So you've got takeoff mode. If I just zoom out slightly so you can see these change. You've got takeoff mode, cruise mode, air-to-air mode, air-to-ground mode, and landing mode. Okay, so we're going to leave it in takeoff mode for the moment. It's important to realise that this vertical bank of switches just changes what you can see. It doesn't actually change anything about the operation of the aeroplane. So alongside that, we've also got steer command options here. So this relates to the high-speed display. So you've got TACAN mode. So if we had a TACAN station tuned in, which we could tune in over here, if we did have one tuned in, then this would reflect, the arrow would reflect the direction of the TACAN station from us. Okay? If we click on destination mode, the arrow will point towards the next waypoint. You can see it's just moved. But what's really going on here is if we go and look at LittleNavMap, I have prepared a flight plan in LittleNavMap, and then I saved it out to my hard drive as a PLN file. So I did that via the menu here. And then I loaded into the simulator, and on the world map screen, I selected to load the flight plan from my saved file, which gives me my custom waypoints of wherever I've programmed them. Okay, so how do you get this in destination mode to reflect where the next waypoint is? We'll come to that in a moment. So the other modes here, we don't really need to worry about. They haven't been implemented properly. All we're really interested in is either TACAN mode or destination mode, and we're going to focus on destination mode today. Okay, so how do we get that waypoint to get chosen? Because if you go and look in here and click on the vertical display indicator, you get the Jester menu with the various macros to do things around the aeroplane. This is Jester doing them. In the Tomcat, the pilot doesn't actually organise the waypoint coordinates or anything like that. It's done by the co-pilot. So you have to come up to the cameras, open up the pilot drop down and select co-pilot instead. That puts you in the co-pilot position. If you then click on the radar screen in the co-pilot position, you get to see the Cougar menu, which is a completely different menu. And in the Cougar menu, you can go into navigation and you can choose a waypoint. Okay? So we can say we want to go to waypoint 1. So if you keep an eye on this display, suddenly it's pointing straight towards the waypoint, so 30 degrees off of our nose. We can see there it's about 160 degrees. And a range of 36 miles. So we go and look on the map, 160 degrees, 35 miles. So it's there or thereabouts. Okay, so that's using destination mode, but you select that in the front cockpit. Yeah? You can also change it here, I believe. Oh no, there's odd things that are implemented one side and not the other. It's a bit like there's the major modes here for what we just did in the shortcut menu. You should be able to, for example, go in here and say select waypoint, but it doesn't affect it. Yeah, you can light it up, but it won't actually have any effect. So that half the buttons are here that actually work in the DCS version, but they don't actually work in the Flight Sim version. But it is kind of good enough to be able to get by. Okay, so I'm actually going to take off from the co-pilot position just to save ourselves running backwards and forwards up and down the cockpit. So we'll come off the parking brake, we'll extend the flaps a little bit, we'll open the throttles, full throttle, afterburners on, 100, and rotate. We're at RAF Valley, by the way. So we're going to fly down towards the Mach loop. So I've lifted the flaps. We'll pull the throttles back to just cruise along. So what we would love to do now is get the autopilot engaged. So if we zoom in here, we can see Autopilot Master here is not engaged. If we click on the words Autopilot Master, and you have to click on the letters, it will engage it. So then we can set altitude. So it's gone for the current altitude, yeah? So then the autopilot has taken over flying for a given altitude. But it's actually going to a reference altitude. Look, we can see the aircraft altitude and the reference altitude. So if we want to climb, we have to say increase that. So we'll say click on this 5,000 here, if we can get it to click on it. There we go. So the aircraft is now gently going to climb up to 7,500 feet. Notice we don't get any control over climb rate. Okay, so we'll let it continue climbing. If we click in the middle, we'll come back out to the previous menu. So then we can do navigation. Okay, so at the moment we've selected waypoint 1, but notice the airplane hasn't turned. It doesn't. What you have to do is control the heading from here. So we can set the heading and we can add degrees to it. So we want to add 30 degrees basically to our current heading. So we've now got 162 degrees. So the airplane is turning now. Yeah. It's interesting, look, the attitude indicator in the co-pilot seat doesn't work, which is a bit of a shame. There's all sorts of things that aren't quite implemented. If we want now to go back into the pilot seat, we can. So we go pilot and go and have a look. And you can see he's got obviously got the same display, and you can see if we go and have a look on here, obviously we're flying the right direction, but we're not going towards the waypoint. So we come back into here. I'm not sure if we can do it from here. Let's have a look. No, we can set waypoints in here. I don't think we can set headings, can we? It's a bit of a shame. You have to go back into the rear cockpit to set headings. But we could fly it by hand. So I'm going to disengage the autopilot, which you can do down here as well. And we'll turn towards that heading bug ourselves. So we're 16 miles out and we're turning towards it. Okay, so you can see that happening down there on the high-speed display. So we're almost doing Mach 1. Didn't mean to go that fast. 12 miles out and we're at 11,000 feet, so let's just level out. Get rid of this crazy climb rate. So there's the vertical speed indicator, just winding out some of that climb rate, trimming the aeroplane a little bit. Okay, so we're just coming up to Barmouth, or Barmouth, which is down here, and that will be the entrance into the Mach loop. So we'll go and have a quick lap of the Mach loop, and then we'll come back out and fly home following the autopilot again. So we'll have to pick up the appropriate waypoint. So let's put the head tracking on now, so we'll need it for the Mach loop. Okay, so we're just going to descend down into the estuary. Look from outside, see what the airplane looks like. Probably need to slow down a little bit. We need the wings out, so we need some manoeuvrability around the Mach loop, particularly around Corris Corner and the curves after it. Okay, so let's put the spoilers out for a few moments. We're doing Mach 0.8 still. It's going to slow us down a little bit. Doesn't want to slow down, does it? Mach 0.7. Okay.
Whoa, watch the ground.
So this is kind of the, I guess, coming in from this side of the Mach loop, you fly along the river and then double back on yourself to actually find the entry point. So Mach 0.7 still, we're okay. Going to double back over this hill in a moment and come barreling out across here. We should find the entry point. Just trimming the nose out a little bit. Okay, let's double back then. The throttle to full military power, so we drop down into the valley here and we should see the entrance directly ahead of us, and there it is. So we'll come barreling in across the landscape here. Let's go and put the HUD into cruise mode. It might actually be worth putting it into landing mode, because then you get your velocity vector. Should we do that before we get to chorus? At least now we've got a velocity vector, but it only really works on the vertical axis, which is a bit of a shame. Trying to keep the speed down. We're down to Mach 0.5 just to make these turns, and then we'll speed back up again. The Tomcat's a bit of a specialist at turn rate if it's configured correctly with the flaps and slats. Still not good enough to get around here, look. So we're opening the engines up. I'm not going to go for afterburner just yet. We will when we get to the back side of here. So we're just giving ourselves some turn rate here. So pull around the trees on the hill into the valley. Try and find the afterburner. I'm having to feel around with my fingers. There we go. Let's keep an eye on the speed as we come around here. 0.8. 0.9. It has a horrible habit of sucking itself into the ground. Yeah, it's doing it now. Doesn't like going this fast, that's the trouble. Not at low level anyway. Whether that's a hole in the flight model, I'm not sure. So we're just slowing it down a little bit.
Fuel 7,000.
flat out, we're going to go straight line now because we're going to go home after this. We're beyond Mach 1, so there'll be a lot of complaints, I think, about us. Towards Mach 1.15.
Where's Joker?
Just call out Joker fuel. That usually means we've got about 5,000 left. So let's do this from outside. So obviously we're supersonic, which is why we can't hear anything. And we're no longer supersonic.
Fuel 5,000.
So we need to figure out now. I mean, there's angle C over there. We need to figure out what direction to go, so we'll go and have a look at the autopilot. So we'll just come off the throttles. Put this back in cruise mode so we're not seeing the velocity vector all the time. So what we'll need to do is go into the back seat, this is where it gets to be a bit of a pain. So we go to the co-pilot. Actually, we could have done this from the front seat as well. You can select waypoints from the front seat. So we're going to go to navigation, and we're going to select go to the home base.
Switching to home base.
So this will now point exactly the direction we're going because we're already going the right direction. Obviously, if we wanted to, we could use the autopilot to do that. But seeing as we're already going here, and it's not very far, we're heading home. So we are 35 miles away, apparently 34. Just descending gently along the way. So look on the map. So you see we're following the route home basically. We never used waypoint 2 in the end. But you get the idea, you can just select via the radar display, or you can do the waypoint selection from the cockpit as well. So if we go back to camera, go to pilot and choose the pilot position in the cockpit. We can do it from here as well. So if we go to navigation, we can choose the waypoints. Yeah. Obviously we don't need to now because we're nearly home. We've already chosen base, and we have to look at the HSD to see which way we're going. Obviously, just to show you the orientation of that, if I did a left turn, for example, you'll see there's the direction I'm going, there's the direction to the waypoint. See that? And we're whistling along at quite some speed. Okay, how are we doing? 14 miles to go. So I'm using a freeware add-on from FlightSim.2 of RAF Valley. So we'll circle round to the left and come in for an approach. So we'll pass the airfield. No doubt everybody's going to be laughing and saying, you know, permission to buzz the tower, negative, the pattern is full, or words to those effects. Let's get below Mach 1 as we go over the land. There's Valley.
We're at our third steer point.
So it's not the best textures in the world because it's obviously freeware scenery, but it still looks pretty good. Okay, so we want to put this back into landing mode so we get the visual cues. So people are no doubt going to ask, can it do ILS? No, it can't. The Tomcat, although the real world Tomcat has got ILS and it could be tuned in through the co-pilot's seat, the radar intercept officer. Neither the DCS version or the FlightSim version have ILS working in the aircraft as far as I'm aware. So you have to use TECAN typically, and then use distance to measure, you know, your altitude. So there's an element of kind of old school pilotage that you have to deal with. Just rolling it in, looking for the PAPI lights. A bit high still.
800 feet. 600. 500. We're bingo fuel. 350.
Too low.
300. 250 feet. 200 feet. 150 feet. 100 feet. 40.
Okay, so there we go. We're down. Fairly uneventful, wasn't it? Just wondering why I now... Oh, of course, I have to turn on the nose wheel steering. And that seemed to be a bug there as well. It was engaged, but it wasn't working, so I cycled it and it started working. There are numerous bugs in this aeroplane. One of the biggest bugs is you have to go to altitude hold before you can go to a selected altitude. So no doubt they'll fix a lot of these issues, but there's nothing like having several thousand testers trying your aeroplane out, is there? Versus, you know, a small team that would have been looking for, you know, numerous things, but maybe not every angle of every operation and every sequence of how it might be done. Okay. So, hopefully you found that interesting. So that was some basic information about how to use the navigation modes in the co-pilot display to control which waypoint you're flying to, and then you have to use heading mode to change your heading inside the cockpit, or for the autopilot, sorry. So then obviously you can fly to the heading very quickly and easily, but if you want the autopilot to do it, you have to use heading mode. It will not turn towards the waypoint for you. Okay, anyway, I'm going to leave it there. Hopefully that was interesting, and I'll see you again soon.